Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Osetinsky.
And I'm not a doctor, Jeff McKinnon. And this
This
is
is Speech
Speech Kids!
Kids!
Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids!
We have an extra special show today. I've been really excited about this for several weeks, actually, because we have very special guests joining us today.
Well, I really like this because I know last week I asked if you were going to give extra credit or make it mandatory for people or students to listen to your show. And now you just gone ahead and made them guests on the show, which I think is even better. So
Absolutely. They are going to fail all their classes unless they say nice things about me today, because I have that power. So yeah, we've got 3 of my fabulous students who are a part of this really unique and cool program at the University of Northern Iowa called Communications and Theater Teaching. And they are all either majors or minors in this communications theater teaching program that's essentially training the next generation of speech coaches and theater teachers. In Iowa, a lot of times people do both because there's a lot of small schools. So the program focuses on both. And I've had them as part of their theater education, all 3 of them. And they've also had a communications education that is focused partially on teaching speech. So they are here to talk with us about that and talk about what they're learning and what they hope and what they want to do in the world. The young people, I feel like there's like some song about like, we are the children, like we are the world, we are the children, or like I believe the children are our future. That's it. That's the song, teach them well and let them lead the way. That's how I'm feeling today.
Oh,
But
anyway,
first,
I did. You did send me the description of their program, and it was like, oh, so you're just training education superheroes, is what it sounds like. I want to do it. It's like they're teaching people about journalism and speech and debate and how to save democracy. I don't know. It was quite lofty. The higher education mission is quite ambitious, and it made me feel like I do nothing with my life.
And we fail at it a lot, but we try, darn it. But we do. We have 3 superheroes here today. Future teacher superheroes. So that's really exciting. But first,
yes,
I think we have some liberal interpretation from Jeff. What are you liberally interpreting today?
Well, I studied an old form of speech and debate called Lincoln-Douglas debate when 2 candidates for president had what one might call a debate. And I decided it got me thinking. I watched it and thought, oh, both of these people's way of thinking is irrelevant. And this is just an exercise in futility. So I have a liberal interpretation today. I am calling grateful, period, dead, period.
I have found that a certain type that calls himself a liberal, I always thought I was a liberal.
I get that it undermines the message.
So I watched all 1.5 presidential debates in this election cycle as if I really cared about what was said or done. All I was left knowing about either candidate is that I'll never know the truth about anything. In the age of information, I don't know anything. And guess what? Neither do you, because it doesn't matter anymore. Knowing anything doesn't matter anymore. I do not know who paid who, or who paid what in taxes, or who made deals with who, or who built the cages, who is responsible, who is controlled by who is better, who is worth, who actually cares. Because frankly, we know too much to care anymore. Our decisions aren't based on what we know, it's what we feel. Because knowing doesn't matter. I'm 35. Okay, my girlfriend is 27. We're both smart, well-rounded people. Not that you need to know that, but what I do want you to know is that she doesn't know who the Grateful Dead are. Now, I know who the Grateful Dead are, and I'm not even 60. And I know anyone my age is like, what? How? And everyone younger than me is like, who? When she told me that she doesn't know who the Grateful Dead is, I asked if her parents kept her in a bunker because it didn't make sense to me. And frankly, I was also thinking a bunker sounds really cozy right now. But then I realized, why should she know who the Grateful Dead are? There is too much content now. There's too many options. There's too many TikToks and snaps zipping through our consciousness that the Grateful Dead's relevance is ancient history. Okay, they are an artifact that you must seek deep in the jungle like Indiana Jones. You must find a man wearing a single cloth and a flower in his hair, offering you fire to guide your journey deep into the cave. And the good news is that once you find that Grateful Dead, you'll discover a single jam that will last you the entire trip back home. And by trip, I mean mushrooms and acid, which is the only way for you to enjoy the Grateful Dead. And it's also, it used to be the only way that your brain felt like the internet. But who has this kind of attention span anymore? You know, basically right now, it is experience, judgment, next. Experience, judgment, next. Okay, there is no thought, because thought is only a handicap in a world full of impulse. You know, this election cycle, BTS TikToks had more effect on the election cycle than protest songs by CSNY. Who is that? Come on, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young? Okay, I'll be honest. Frankly, you are probably lucky if you were too young or too old to know who that is, because the world is filled with relentless noise. You don't have to dig back in the past to find more. The internet has made the speed of information and the rate of new experience so accelerated that they are taxing our brains to irrelevance. Your brain is now merely a conductor for the ever-refined impulse master in your hand. And I'm not old, but I remember when the only upgrade to my cell phone was changing the face on my Nokia. I had a pager and dial-up, and then no internet at all if I really want to go back to it. I remember these things. That's the curse of being an Oregon Trail generation millennial. We're 30-something. We straddle this line between the very young and the very old, somewhere between when you remember and when memory stopped mattering. So who needs memories when you have 12 photos of the same moment? I don't. I mean, we millennials are the linchpin, I feel, ones connected to both ends of the generational divide, perhaps the ones to unite both through, you know, a little bit of understanding, because we get it. Old people are selfish and young people don't care. That's the basic premise behind the divide. And as I've said before, you can't conserve time and progress is inevitable. So perhaps my girlfriend is better off not knowing the Grateful Dead, or as I found out, Creedence Clearwater Revival, or Simon and Garfunkel, or Fleetwood Mac, or REO Speedwagon, or Def Leppard, or Aerosmith. All true, yes. I put them all on the same level. And that's because they all weigh the same on vinyl. And I've been lugging around a metric ton of those bands for years. For some reason, place to place, third floor apartment to fifth floor apartment with no elevator, stair by stair, bin by bin, crate by crate, all to carry around a bunch of music that I would get in higher fidelity on Apple Music for less money than each one of those albums cost. So all I have to say is, look, there is no experience because there is too much experience. It's not worth holding on to. So why would a sequence or intention ever matter on an album? Why would knowing the Grateful Dead matter at all? I'm barely a Deadhead or a fanatic about anything anymore because I won't give myself the time for a 39-minute jam. I barely take time for a 10-minute meditation or 25-minute yoga. They say 45-minute yoga. I'm like, what are you, crazy? I'm just an addict for what's next, and I have no thoughts for what's actually right or true, the old or the new. I just hope to keep living to experience more things live again, and who knows when that will ever happen. But I will be grateful when I'm dead, and most grateful for the times that I lived. But again, who knows? I don't know anything. That's it. That is a liberal interpretation for the day, and I feel like an old man now.
That's okay. I'm an old lady with you. I'm sitting here going like, you're listing these bands in my face. I'm just in shock and like tears. See, and I actually do think though, Jeff, that perhaps this is the fault of your girlfriend's parents and not your girlfriend. Like, how did they raise her that she doesn't know any of these bands? But that's just judgmental and wrong, because you're probably right. It's all about cell phones and internet and all these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to say like that music was better or this music is, you know, worse or anything like that. It's, you know, I just genuinely was baffled by why I knew it and why they didn't. And I feel like it's only because like music was harder to find and accumulate before, you know? So like I just remember like when a classic rock song was featured in a movie and then you had to figure out where it came from. And then all of a sudden you just deep dived at the library and were like ripping CDs into your you know, your Napster account or whatever the hell.
Yep. Making mix CDs with all of my favorite thing, Napster. So you would have you like download stuff, but it would take so long to download that sometimes you'd only get part of a song. And so I'd have to stitch together the parts of the song on these mix CDs that would have like jumps in them. And I actually had a CD burner because I was really cool. And so I would burn mix CDs, but like they would be halves of songs and like songs that were like stitched Frankensteined together.
Yes, I remember it was really hard for me to get a decent burned copy of Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. And it was,
yeah.
You know, like I was always like psyched when you would find like a soundtrack like The Big Chill that had like 10 of those kinds of songs. So I didn't really have to figure out where any of those songs came from.
The Forrest Gump soundtrack was like the anthem of my later childhood. I think that's a thing too, though, because it's partly like so much of my early memories of music and the reason that I know things like the Dead and especially the Beatles, Billy Joel, you know, all of these kinds of things. The reason is because of my mom and because of what my mom listened to and how much music was in our house and all the time, all of these things, whether it was on vinyl or then on tape and then after that on CD, Queen, we would just like rock out to Queen in the living room when I was a kid. And so I think that's part of it too, this sort of like passing down of that music that I guess maybe isn't the same thing for everyone or maybe doesn't happen anymore. I don't know.
You know, I definitely was wondering if, you know, perhaps she knew the songs but just didn't know the bands, because we were unpacking my vinyls. And, you know, I mean, she was insulted when I was like, do you know who Jimi Hendrix is? She was like, come on. Yes, I do. And then, you know, I mean, she knows the Beatles, she knows the Stones, you know, but there's like, I was kind of realizing like, there is no reason for her to know these things, nor is there any reason for me to know these things anymore. You know, like,
did you get them from your parents? Like, were your parents listening to this stuff?
My parents were like 80s people. So if anything, I picked up like Def Leppard and Tears for Fears and like George Michael and stuff from them, or like U2. But yeah, the rest just kind of came from like being a bit of a music junkie.
And it could also be where you spent your high school years, because there are so many dirty hippies in Colorado that like Dead and Fish. The reason I know those things is because of my dirty hippie friends who I adored. You know, like that music was their music. And so I listened to it when I hung out with them, even if I wasn't like, you know, traveling on the road following Fish, you know, though I have friends who still do that. And I'm like, yes, I love it, you dirty hippies.
Yeah, I can't tell if I want to do it. I kind of do want to do it. Like I kind of feel like people that like follow bands around and just trip out like for like months at a time, just kind of they've given themselves over to the rabbit hole and have no desire to dig back out. And I'm, you know, I can't say I'm better than that. I feel like there's a beauty in that kind of devotion and disconnect from God knows what.
You know, as long as I could do it while staying at luxury hotels in box seats, I'd probably be down for that.
Yeah,
I'm too old for the dirty camping and, you know.
I mean, I've been to plenty of music festivals. I'm not above this. Like, this is very much my style. And I do enjoy the Dead. You know, for those who don't know who the Grateful Dead are, you know, jam bands. I don't know if there's popular jam bands anymore, but it's kind of like Dave Matthews Band is like the pumpkin spice latte of the jam bands, you know, and then like, you know, Fish is sort of like the black coffee, and then, you know, the
Fish is the very white coffee.
Yeah. Lots of soy milk in it. And then the Dead is kind of like that coffee that's brewed from the cats in the jungle that eat coffee beans and poop them out. And then, you know, it's like the real aficionados know that's what it is. And I guess I get it.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, culture. These kids these days.
Kids these days, it's the question of like, is it worth holding on to the old, you know, or should it be the new? And when we were in speech together, it was like, is it, you know, there's classic pieces, and then, you know, there's the ones that can crush by finding the piece that's new that nobody has touched before and getting that out before anybody's seen it. So there's no basis of comparison. So it's kind of like, I don't know, if you can turn the old into the new and do something fresh, that's powerful. But really, most people just want to see something new now instead of a remake or an update.
It's like the hipster argument, you know.
Oh, this is
something old into
jacket, by the way.
There you go. Yeah. Interesting. Awesome.
Anyway.
I think too, like part of it's just so interesting, the age difference between you and your girlfriend, which isn't really that much. Like once you're an adult, that kind of difference just isn't that much of a difference. Like big deal, whatever. But
Yeah.
culturally, especially around the time that we were teenagers, because there was some stuff started changing so fast that like folks who are only a few years younger than us have a completely different experience of adolescence. And so
Oh
it's
yeah.
like this completely different outlook on the world.
Well, I have a theory that people will feel the greatest about the music that came out between the ages of 9 and 12, and they don't realize it until you go to when you were 9 and 12, and suddenly like everything just rings like, you know, the voices of angels in your mind. You're like, wow, this was perfect music. And I don't know what it is. Like for me, that was like Boys to Men and TLC, and you know, 1993, 1994 was like kind of like, I don't know why, it was like the greatest period of music ever. And yet
Well,
it
actually,
really
you're not wrong on that one. Like truly, because you know, for me, it was a few years earlier than that. But the '90s, like you know, the grunge was the thing for me. Like
Mhm.
grunge music was so grunge music and Alanis Morissette. Like
Oh, yeah.
those were the things that were like, and then pop punk as I got a little older. That's like the thing that I hear it now, and it's just joy, utter
Yeah.
joy. So
But see but if you go into your high school years and you're like, oh, that you'll connect to it, but that's when you're like forming like kind of angsty memories. You're trying to figure out who you are. But like 9 to 12, you're still kind of in the zone where you have memories and they're a little vivid and connected to memories, but you're just still a little innocent. So it
oh yeah,
feels like freedom and you
Green
know,
Day's Dookie is like
oh yeah.
that for me, and Nirvana.
Yeah.
Definitely. I remember vividly the day that Kurt Cobain died, and at my middle school, we like held a vigil,
Boy.
which is another awkward story. I went to a very interesting middle school. We can talk about that sometime. And then, like, you know, Pearl Jam as
Uh-huh.
well. Was it
These are all
10
things that
years ago?
honestly I missed that by like 2 or 3 years because
Yeah.
that's our gap. And so like things got very like poppy and I'll say corny by the time
Yeah.
that I was hitting that sweet spot age. So like, you know, I was into like Michael Jackson's History album, and I was into Bobby Brown's like solo. I don't know. I liked Michael Bolton and Kenny G.
Yeah.
I was a you know, Nirvana and Pearl Jam started to make sense when I was in my 20s. And
So on the Michael Bolton and Kenny G front, I think that's a good place for us to move on as we leave with that image of Jeff and Michael Bolton and Kenny G.
well, yes,
Just to
today's a
keep things
special show
rolling.
because you have 3 of your students, and you, of course, being a director, you are known to give your director's notes.
It's really interesting right now being on a college campus. We're going to talk for a minute about this and about politics and the college campus, because as we are in this very contentious political season, it's really interesting because universities, professors get, you know, we get accused so often of like indoctrinating our students with our liberal biases. Like that's like literally something we get accused of, which is so interesting because really that just means liberal bias is having actual information and being able to understand what is true and what is not true. So if that's a liberal bias, then yes, I indoctrinate my students with a liberal bias. But it's interesting because if you're not sort of privy to what's actually going on, you don't really realize that, for example, have had multiple emails come through and multiple reminders over the last few months about politics on campus. We as professors are prohibited from campaigning on campus, from endorsing in any way professionally endorsing on campus any candidate. We are allowed to tell our students to vote, but we are not allowed to talk to them about who to vote for. We are not allowed to put up like any kind of political anything in our offices or anything like that. So like technically I'm not supposed to tell my students what my politics are. Now my students know what my politics are. It's because right now it's just pretty darn clear.
Your glasses and your hair give away what
Give
your
away my
politics
politics, right? Exactly. You know, the fact that I don't wear a red hat. But so it's just really interesting to be on campus and to see all this going on and being wanting to, you know, talk about things, but also being prohibited from it. And something really interesting sort of along these lines just happened at my university, and it actually made Fox News, which I'm just like, oh my God, we're on Fox News, but there's an organization called Students for Life of America that is a pro-life student organization. And I'm like, I'm checking out their website, and like, it's scary to me. Like, they have chapters at middle schools and high schools. Like, I'm just like, oh geez, this scares me. But really their whole thing is, they say about like the pro-life generation eradicating abortion by getting young people to say it's wrong. So that's sort of what this group does. Pro-life student, pro-life, what is it? Students for Life of America. That's this group. Now, if you didn't guess, I am so far on the pro-choice side of this that I am just like, all I want is women to have autonomy over their body and make their own healthcare decisions. Like, it goes so much further than just being pro-choice about abortion. So I am very much diametrically opposed to the views of this group, and I think they're horrible, just in what they do and what they stand for. And I find it to be disgusting that they are trying to get young children to do this, all of that. But they wanted to incorporate a chapter at the University of Northern Iowa, and in order to do that, you have to go through a process with student government. And they were initially denied access because one of the rules is that you can't be a hate organization, and student government labeled them a hate organization based on some things. I'm not sure exactly what that, like, the national organization had done. I don't know. But anyway, so it went through, like, we have like a Supreme Court on campus, and I know some of my students who are coming on in a minute know a lot more about the way the system works than I do. But this Supreme Court sort of they wrote down a decision saying, nope, we're going to deny you. And so this student group, they appealed, and the appeal goes to the president of the university. And just today, the president came out and overturned the decision for this, allowing Students for Life to have a chapter on campus. And the reasoning really for this is about that it's about free speech. And interestingly, the president was connecting it to the United States Supreme Court decision in Healy versus James in 1972, in talking about a student group being denied incorporation because they could be a disruptive influence on campus, and like just this sort of idea of squashing free speech. And he came out to say sort of that there's no evidence that they're operating outside of their First Amendment rights, and therefore they have to be given incorporation by the rules of the university. So it's just this really interesting thing. And where I sit here going, I think they're abhorrent, but I also agree with the president's decision. Like, wholeheartedly agree that these students should be allowed to incorporate this organization because of the First Amendment. And they have every right to yell as loud as they want on campus about pro-life, as long as they are not doing it in a way that is hateful or like actually physically hurting people. Like, they have every right to do that. And that's part of what makes our country and our university great and so I was really actually happy today, at the same time being disgusted that this is now on my campus. I'm just like, yeah, that's free speech, because where is the line? Where is, if we start saying no to things that we disagree with, when it flips the other way, where's the person saying no to all of the things that we agree with, which right now is our president, saying we can't talk about diversity and anything if we're a public organization. And that's just a whole other thing that, in a sense, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. This idea of free speech is so important that I agree with letting these people on our campus.
Yeah. Well, are they students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're students. So really the only reason they would want to be incorporated is so that they can have, certain like materials and events sanctioned or using the facility.
They get money.
They get money.
There is money
From
that
the
comes out of
university?
student fees from the university for all university sanctioned student organizations. And so
Now, to that end, I would have to disagree that they should have any sort of incorporation, not because I disagree with what they stand for, but because their viewpoints are not something that, if I were a student there, I would want my money going towards. And I as they wouldn't want a pro-choice group getting funding from their tuition money. I mean,
but they do. That's the thing, is we have groups on that other side of it. And I don't know if we specifically have a pro-choice group, but even like our, Center for Diversity and diverse student groups, we have a theater organization that's dedicated to multicultural theater, and like they get money. So that's where I'm like, any student organization that meets the requirements of this list of things you have to do to be a student organization has the opportunity to get money. Like they can apply for money from the university. And I think if you're going to go one way, you have to go the other.
Yeah, I mean, it seems fair. I mean, I don't think even if they weren't incorporated, that their mission or anything that they intended to do would have been, squelled. It sounds like it was just about getting some sort of sanctioned money. I don't know. I feel like the protection of free speech should be paramount above anything. I think college is a time to, incubate thought, because everybody's brain is still forming. The only thing I got from college was just the I don't know, the structure to how I think for the rest of my life. I don't
right.
I don't think I remember anything I actually learned from textbooks, but I remember having to use them and how you navigate a much larger population that's much more diverse. Yes, I went to CU Boulder, so I put diverse in quotes, but
hippies and non-hippies. Yeah,
exactly. But I just find the whole thing like, I've never really seen a pro-life demonstration that didn't want to be like viscerally offensive. I've actually heard, I've heard pro-life people explain their position in a way that if I was raised to believe that, I understand where they're coming from.
Sure.
I don't ever really hear it out in the messaging, but on a one-on-one, that's what I hear, and I get why they would want to protect what they believe. But I don't know. They've never really given me a decent answer to why you wouldn't, leave it to an individual female to have autonomy over her body and her health. There's never really been an answer to that. It's just kind of like, but God.
Well, and I mean, I agree. I think it's, I grew up living a couple doors down from a doctor who performed abortions, and we would have the abortion trucks come every once in a while with the pictures of dead fetuses all over them, shouting in the neighborhood about how he was a horrible person because he performed abortions. So like, I mean, there's a whole like, yeah, I'm with you. I think they're abhorrent, but damn it, I will protect their right to yell about their abhorrent message with my life, because free speech is that important. But on that note,
abortion trucks, I was like, so he would just have trucks pull up in front of his house, and that's where he would.
Well, essentially, they're like no, they're vans with like pictures, like really terrible pictures. Yeah.
What if you went to a one of those body wrap shops, and you're like,
oh yeah, I mean, it was awful. It was like over the line, and really, actually, they were breaking the law at a certain point. Like if they would step over this off the sidewalk onto anyone's property, then they were breaking the law. Like it was so the whole neighborhood would be like on alert and would call the cops if they ever stepped onto our lawn type thing. Really interesting. But I would love to hear what the students have to say about this whole thing that just went down, because I am sure that they have another perspective and may have even more information than I do about this. So I think it's a great time to invite on our guests. We have 3 students from the University of Northern Iowa. We have KAITLYN Vasey, MEGAN LENSTRA, and Molly MAGILL. Welcome.
Hello.
So before we get to all the niceties and the who are you and what do you do, I just want to know if any of you have thoughts on what's been going on.
Yeah, Amy, I think what you said is a really great point, and I've been thinking along those lines as well. Like, I understand that the university felt as though their hands were tied in having to grant these students membership, or however you want to phrase it. I think the main concern for NISG, which is Northern Iowa Student Government, who originally denied them, was the use of hate speech in their rhetoric, in their proposition. And so again, I'm not sure if it was from their national organization or if it was this chapter's submission to the university, but the video of them at their meeting discusses hate speech and how that was a big concern of theirs and why they originally turned it down. But I do think that as long as we want the right to advocate for what we believe, I guess we have to give that to everyone, and that is what makes our country great, is the fact that we should be able to express our beliefs, even if we don't believe those same beliefs.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that clarification about so the actual dissent was about use of hate speech somewhere within something having to do with the organization.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
You know, I recently heard Candace Owens, not that she's, you know, the sharpest tack. Well, she's very smart, but she let me know that hate speech is actually just a liberal concept. So we're, you know, we're already showing our liberal bias here by declaring, you know, speech that is overtly offensive. That's a concept that only we lefties really believe in.
Yep, absolutely. So Megan or Caitlin, any thoughts on this? Any perspectives as students at the university?
So as someone that is currently student teaching, I'm not on the University of Northern Iowa's campus right now. So I'm not really sure. I've only been following like emails that I get in my UNI email. But from what I was reading about and when I first heard about, what I gathered was that it, like Molly was saying, it was initially like a fear of possible hate speech. I'm more interested to see what their mission statement is and their what they want to accomplish with this group. I think that's what I'm really interested in. But I agree with everyone's saying here is having that freedom of speech, even if it is on a side that I also personally do not agree with. We need to make sure that their voices still are heard, as long as it's not harming others, of course. But yeah.
Yeah, and you all can join me if they're doing anything abhorrent on campus. You can all join me and we'll just go yell louder. Like we're protecting our free speech, so we can all go yell over them with our free speech. Caitlin, any perspective on this that you want to share? Anything that hasn't been said? No, she's saying.
They have a right, unfortunately. Is that
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. I mean, I want to keep being able to advocate for people that I love. And so if I have to let other people speak what they believe is their truth, then so be it.
You seem like the most reasonable person in any room, and I feel like you've probably broken up many a contentious argument at the Thanksgiving table. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
I'll start with Caitlin. Caitlin, where did you come from, and what's your background with speech or speech and debate?
I am from Huxley, Iowa, which is a small town between Ankeny and Ames, which is half an hour from Des Moines. So I grew up in a town that was like 97% white. And I did a lot of high school speech. I did it all 4 years, individual and group. And I also did a lot of theater. And so I wanted to do what a lot of teachers in my area would do, which was they would do their teaching in whatever subject, and then they would help out with the speech program. And so that's why I went into English teaching, because I'm an English teaching major with a comm theater teaching minor. So I want to be able to, teach English and do that whole thing while also being able to do the whole speech and hopefully like direct plays and stuff like that is the goal.
Awesome. When you said you did it individually and group, what were your events? What did you compete in?
I did a lot over the years because we had a policy that if you made all state in an individual event, you couldn't do that event again, just because you had like maxed out. So you had to let other people try it. So I did, storytelling, musical theater, prose, poetry, for individual. And then for large group, I did readers theater, musical theater. Oh geez, it was so long ago. I can't even remember them all. I did a lot of stuff.
I just love that you've maxed out on so many things. You're like, maxed out that, next.
Well, and it's interesting, Caitlin, because these events are so different than like what Jeff and I remember from us. So like every state sort of has their own thing. Like there's the national events that you can compete at nationals, and then every state also has other stuff. So it's just interesting to hear all of these events that you've competed in that we're like, what?
Musical theater. My goodness. Molly, I detected an accent. Where are you from?
I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. So a town called Libertyville, and my high school actually didn't have speech. It's not really a huge thing in our area. And so my indoctrination into Iowa speech has all taken place over this year. Caitlin and I are getting certified to judge IHSSA, and that's very exciting, but I have a lot to learn. And she's talking about readers theater and musical theater and all of these different categories. And I'm like, what's going on? So I was a big theater kid, and I'm the same major minor as Caitlin, English teaching with theater ed minor. And yeah, hoping to run a theater department, learn a lot about speech, and run a speech team.
Now, have you ever been on the performance side of, did you do theater? Were you ever more of a performer?
Yes, I was a big theater kid. So I see in the speech kids that I work with at Cedar Falls High School, I see that in them. I look at them and I'm like, oh yeah, you should do this as well. And so lots of kids at Cedar Falls do both, which is nice.
What was your like prized role when you were in high school? What was the one that you were just like, yes?
I was Elle Woods in Legally Blonde.
Oh my gosh, of course you were. That does not surprise me at all.
That was really when I hit my peak.
Megan, you sent us a Reader's Theater piece, which I can't wait to get to in Cold Cuts. But where do you hail from originally, and what's your background in speech and theater?
Yeah, so I'm from Dubuque, Iowa, which I tell my students right now is where my house is. I'm 15 minutes away from the Wisconsin border, but it's also 15 minutes away from the Illinois border. So I really grew up in like sometimes 3 states, which is kind of cool, just because I'm on the border there. And when I went to the University of Northern Iowa, I am a double major in communication theater teaching and English teaching. So a lot of times my professors would call me the unicorn because they're like, oh, you're the theater educator, like, you know the stuff. So that's my majors there. And as for high school speech, I didn't start till my sophomore year because I had no idea it existed. I didn't understand what it was. What really got me interested was after I did the spring musical, my friends were like, you have to do individual events in the spring. And I was like, okay, cool. And I thought it was so cool. I wrote this poem by myself for poetry event and I did awful. It was a terrible poem, terrible event. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what my teacher was thinking. But I did it. Some other events I did was my senior year, I did poetry and prose again. Went a lot better, which is good. And for group, I did readers theater, musical theater, and 1 act and ensemble. So we had a smaller speech team at Dubuque Hempstead, because a lot of times when students hear Iowa High School Speech Association, they think of Dubuque Senior, which is a much larger team, but Dubuque Hempstead is kind of smaller.
Yeah, okay, so we have 2 people from Iowa originally, and then not far from Illinois. My girlfriend is from Tipton, Iowa. So that leads me to ask, do any of you know who the Grateful Dead are?
Yes, I do. My parents are big into all classic rock, anything to do with that. So I was raised, that's my bread and butter.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's the one from Illinois. So Iowa friends, do either of
Caitlin,
you?
Megan?
No. So it must be the state of Iowa. There's just like a dead zone for the dead.
Literal dead zone. Oh, you know what? I wish I could say you're missing something, but you're not. Like I said, it's not worth knowing. But it's so exciting that you're all trained to be these teaching superheroes, as I described your program, because it just sounded so well-rounded and incredible. And, so it wants you to, learn journalism, speech and debate, save democracy, all kinds of things. What is your mission as a teacher going into the world? What can you impart? What are you hoping to turn your students into?
I think the greatest thing in coming from a well-rounded program is the hope to produce well-rounded students. So I don't just want to have students in my classroom who are like super good at acting. Like I want my students to be super good at acting, yes, but I also want them to be well informed in how to take those skills to the real world, or how to debate eloquently, how to present their opinions, how to use media to inform, and all of these things that we are learning and putting in our toolbox, I want to then give to my students.
Do you feel like, and I'll bring that question back to Megan and Caitlin, but do you feel like to have well-rounded students, if they're really great at acting, do you feel it's incumbent upon you as their theater and communications teacher to impart the need for business savvy if they want to actually have a career?
I think they have to have some sort of knowledge in a lot of different aspects, especially if they're thinking about the theater world. Because as we all know, the theater world is more than just acting. It's more than just the technical theater side. It's being super well-rounded, as Molly said, about a lot of different topics and skills, and business being one of them, being especially professionalism.
Are you student teaching yet? I didn't gather that you have.
Molly and I both start student teaching next semester, so we have 4 weeks left until we're like done, and then it's student teaching and then graduation. So we're getting super close, and yeah, it's exciting. I'm ready to get out there and start working with students. And I think going back to your earlier question about like what is something we want to teach our students is that I've always kind of approached teaching as like school I feel is a place for growth, academically and as people, because students are living in the real world as of like right now. School for them is their world, and so acknowledging that and helping them work through it and like work through these things that they deal with in high school and middle school. And that's kind of my take on teaching.
If you all ever need an example of like what is speech taught our future like grown-up speech kids, so fun fact, I got an email yesterday morning from the dean, so John Fritsch, asking me about being the commencement speaker for the College of Humanities, Arts, Sciences for the December ceremony.
Yay!
Congrats.
So excited. That's 2 in a row, Megan. That's 2 theater students in a row who are the commencement speakers for us. That's amazing. Good stuff.
So apparently Eric Lang recommended my name. I was like, oh, that was really sweet. He's like, but here's the catch. We need it recorded by this Friday. And I went, oh.
Ooh.
So I wrote a speech last night. I'm revising it right after this. I'm going to rehearse it tomorrow and rehearse it on Friday and memorize it on Thursday, and record it on Friday. So without speech, I would not be able to do this right now.
There you go. Well, and I think that's probably why John went to Eric, and then why Eric said you, because he knows that you'll actually get it done.
Yeah, and the nice thing is with student teaching, I come home from school at like 4 o'clock, and since I'm with my English placement right now, I have no after school activities. So I'm like, well, I do have time for this. So
oh, congratulations.
Here we are.
That's
so
exciting. I can't wait, and I can't wait to share that all over social media and be proud of you all over the internet.
Yeah, stay tuned. I'm talking about resilience and a little bit of my surgery story. So
that's fantastic.
This will be fun. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous, but it will get done. It'll happen.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be great. You're gonna be wonderful.
I did want to ask one more question of you,
Sure.
just because I feel like I can be, reductive, and many people can be reductive about younger generations. I always resented how we were defined in our earlier years. What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of your generation and the generation behind you? And how would you define, the creatives and the minds that are coming up, to change the world?
I think being in Gen Z and being on, I guess, the older end of that spectrum is I see a lot of older adults labeling high school students or middle school students as apathetic towards the state of the world, when really I see such passion in this generation, and such fire. And high school students and younger students are more informed about what's going on in the world than I ever was, even just 4 or 5 years ago. And so that is something that really inspires me.
Like, I so agree with you. I think back to, Jeff jokes where the bottles are buried, but we were far more interested in how we were going to get liquor than we were in who the president was when we were in high school. And that is a big shift. You are so right.
Well, actually, there is market data that shows that generationally, there's far less alcohol consumption, probably because, there's so much data and information that shows how harmful alcohol is to your body and your brain. So there you go. They're smarter.
They're just smarter than we were.
We've got blunt force trauma self-imposed to like this half of our brain. So, we're functioning, at a lesser capacity. So, the fact that we're here is kind of impressive.
Well, like speaking of data and research and stuff, a lot of our students are taking all this, like you were saying before, there's just so much information and so much experience out there that they're taking in so much of that every single day. Um, but I agree with Molly with this. I think sometimes, especially being I'm kind of millennial, kind of Gen Z, I'm not really sure where I'm at in that. I got a lot of the times of like, you're always on your phone, you're always on the internet too much. But from that, I've learned a lot about communication, about empathy, about broadening my perspective rather than just what's going on around like the first 5 miles of where I'm standing. And I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of, not only in our generation, but also the students that we're about to teach as well. Um, Coming from student teaching experience, which Caitlin was saying, you all have 4 weeks until student teaching. I am 4 weeks away from a diploma, and by gosh, I'm going to get that so soon, hopefully. I know, 5.5 years later, we're almost there. But that's what I think for my students is they're taking in all this information and they're trying to broaden their horizons. Some days more than others, and it depends on their attitude too of how much they want to take in as well. But I think they're not getting enough credit and they're not as heard as sometimes we think they should be.
Yeah, I agree. There is a lot of that reducing your generation to just staring at phones and like only being plugged in and negating, you know, the velocity of what you're processing and what you're capable of reaching because, you know, say what you will about the internet, but it's certainly expanded our ability to communicate and understand. So, you know, in that regard, your generation is one of the most informed and most engaged that there's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about like, you know, the March for Our Lives movement that is all high school students, you know, started by high school students that became a force in the world. Like, I can't imagine something like that happening that quickly when we were kids because there just wasn't the ability to communicate outside of your own small network the way that there is now. That's crazy.
Yeah, I could barely get a decent group gathered in our parking lot.
Right?
And I was a student body president. This is far greater reach.
I know. You could only get so many pages a month before you'd have to pay more.
Oh, we're so old. No, we're not. We're still vital. You're a force of nature, Amy. They both said it.
Damn, I guess. So, Caitlin, how about you? What are your thoughts on your generation and those coming after you?
I used to like not want to be associated with Gen Z. And then I kind of realized how powerful our generation is in that we know how to use social media to our advantage, and how to amplify our voices and the voices of the people we care about through social media. Like, speaking of TikTok, they literally used it to destroy Trump's rally, and have people not show up because they all reserved tickets. Like, they just all collectively decided to do this. I just think that we're creative and we find new ways to make sure our voices are heard. I think we're awesome.
Will you help us wield social media to amplify this show?
Sure, yeah.
What do I need to create?
Us old millennial, almost Gen Xers just don't know how to use the interwebs so well.
By the way, if you're Gen Z, what comes after it? Are they basically going like, you guys are the last generation. After this, it's the apocalypse. Well, what a way to go out.
Well, and I think, does that bring us to cold cuts today?
I think it does.
I'm so excited about this.
And now we know that there is a event we never got to participate in. So this week in Cold Cuts, we're doing Readers Theater.
Woo! Gonna get some cold cuts today.
So Megan, why don't you explain a little bit about what this event is and what we're going to be doing before we do it?
Yeah, so Readers Theater is pretty much where an ensemble comes together and they have a script in front of them. That is a really important part of Readers Theater. You have the script in front of you, you look at it at some point. And it's an ensemble work. So you're building a story, you're creating it through not only physical delivery and composition, but also vocal delivery as well. As a past IHSA judge for the past like 5 years, I think. Has it been 5 years already? Yeah. I've seen a lot of students really flourish with this, with vocal variety and making really big and bold choices in physical movement, which sometimes can be difficult. So this will be interesting to see via the interwebs here.
I'm very excited. I do have a question though. Do we read the narrator? Is that a character?
I believe it only has one line. We can skip the narration if we'd like to, or I can read it for us
I think
to get
you
us
should do it
started.
for us to get us started, Megan. I think that'd be perfect.
Are we all ready for our Reader's Theater storytelling script?
Yeah, and I think we should let everyone know that this is seriously a cold cut. Jeff and I received this, a few minutes before we started recording, and we have not looked at this at all other than just saying, okay, here's how we're going to divvy out the characters. So this is truly a cold cut today.
Let's discover together, everyone.
All right, this is called The Day the Crayons Quit, written by Drew Daywalt. One day in class, Duncan went to take out his crayons and found a stack of letters with his name on them.
Hey, Duncan, it's me, Red Crayon. We need to talk. You make me work harder than any of your other crayons. All year long, I wear myself out coloring fire engines, apples, strawberries, and everything else that's red. I even work on holidays. I have to color all the Santas at Christmas and all the hearts on Valentine's Day. I need rest. Your overworked friend, Red Crayon.
Dear Duncan, all right, listen. I love that I'm your favorite crayon for grapes, dragons, and wizard hats, but it makes me crazy that so much of my gorgeous color goes outside the lines. If you don't start coloring inside the line soon, I'm going to completely lose it. Your very neat friend, Purple Crayon.
Dear Duncan, I'm tired of being called light brown or dark tan because I'm neither. I'm beige and I'm proud. I'm also tired of being second place to Mr. Brown Crayon. It's not fair that Brown gets all the bears, ponies, and puppies, while the only things I get are turkey dinners. And if I'm lucky, wheat. And let's be honest, when was the last time that you saw a kid excited about coloring wheat? Your beige friend, Beige Crayon.
Duncan! Gray Crayon here. You're killing me. I know you love elephants, and I know that elephants are gray, but that's a lot of space to color all by myself. And don't even get me started on your rhinos, hippos, and humpback whales. You know how tired I am after handling one of those big things. Such big animals. Baby penguins are gray, so are tiny little rocks, pebbles. How about one of those once in a while to give me a break? You're very tired, friend. Gray Crayon.
Dear Duncan, you color with me, but why? Most of the time, I'm the same color as the page. You were using neon, white. If I didn't have a black outline, you wouldn't even know I was there. I'm not even in the rainbow. I only used to color snow or to fill in empty space between other things. And it leaves me feeling, well, empty. We need to talk. Your empty friend, White Crayon.
Hi, Duncan. I hate being used to draw the outline of things that are colored in by other colors, all of which think they're brighter than me. It's not fair when you use me to draw a nice beach ball and then fill in the colors of the ball with all the other crayons. How about a black beach ball sometime? Is that too much to ask? Your friend, Black Crayon.
Dear Duncan, as Green Crayon, I am writing for 2 reasons. One is to say that I like my workloads, man, of crocodiles, trees, dinosaurs, and frogs. I have no problem and wish to congratulate you on a very successful coloring things green career so far. Now, the second reason I write is for my friends, Yellow Crayon and Orange Crayon, who are no longer speaking to each other. Both crayons feel they should be the color of the sun. Please settle this soon, because they're driving the rest of us crazy. Your happy friend, Green Crayon.
Like, dear Duncan, Yellow Crayon here. I need to tell you to tell Orange Crayon that I am the color of the sun. I would tell him, but we are no longer speaking. And I can prove that I'm the color of the sun too. Last Tuesday, you used me to color in the sun on your Happy Farm coloring book. Like, in case you've forgotten, it's on page 7. You can't miss me. I'm shining down brilliantly on a field of yellow corn. Your pal and the true color of the sun, Yellow Crayon.
Dear Duncan, I see Yellow Crayon already talked to you, the big whiner. Anyways, could you please tell Mr. Tattletale that he is not the color of the sun? Okay, I would like, but we are no longer speaking, okay? We both know that I'm clearly the color of the sun, because on Thursday, you used me to color the sun on both the Monkey Island and the Meet the Zookeeper pages in your Day in the Zoo coloring book, okay? Orange, you glad I'm here? Your pal, and the real color of the sun, Orange Crayon.
Dear Duncan, it has been great being your favorite color this past year and the year before that. I have really enjoyed all those oceans, lakes, rivers, raindrops, rain clouds, and clear skies. But the bad news is that I'm so short and stubby I can't even see over the railing in the crayon box anymore. I need a break. Your very stubby friend, Blue Crayon.
Duncan. Okay, listen here, kid. You have not used me once in the past year. It's because you think I'm a girl's color, isn't it? Speaking of which, please tell your little sister I said thank you for using me to color her little princess coloring book. I think she did a fabulous job of staying inside the lines. Now back to us. Okay, could you please use me sometime to color the occasional pink dinosaur or monster or cowboy? Goodness knows they could use a splash of color. Your unused friend, Pink Crayon.
Psst. Psst. It's me, Peach Crayon. Why did you peel off my paper wrapping? Now I am naked and too embarrassed to leave the crayon box. I don't even have any underwear. How would you like to go to school naked? I need some clothes. Help! Your naked friend, Peach Crayon.
Hey, Peach Crayon, how about you and I go out and make a new color?
That
Pink
is not in
Crayon,
the
ready to
script,
go.
Jeff.
Sorry, I just stayed in character. My bad.
All right. Wow. Wow. That is quite a script, y'all. So now comes the really fun part where you all get to do your best speech judge / teacher impressions for us and tell us how terrible we are. So whoever wants to start, and typically we might do 2 pieces and compete against each other. So you all can also choose a winner who you thought did the best job with our cold cut.
Oh.
So yeah, who wants to start?
Megan, you.
I have to say,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go. What were you saying, Jeff?
I was actually saying you should start. You picked the piece and narrated, and then you.
That's
started.
true. So I actually picked this piece because I judged this piece a while ago with a student in this category of storytelling, and I was just floored by the students, like different characterizations that she gave with this performance here. And I have to say, I mean, she did pretty good. Y'all did good. Y'all did good. She was great. Y'all were good. It was good. But I have to say, okay, the characters you all created on the spot too were fantastic. You all kept the energy up so well too throughout the entire piece. Because it's kind of a longer piece. There are 12 crayons in the box if you are counting at all. So that's 6 characters you have to think of something on the spot there for. I think you all did really good with the characterization there. Amy, were you a little too comfortable with your yellow crayon? It seemed a little too like rehearsed before this. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe channeling my teenage self a little bit, perhaps.
Maybe just a little bit, a little bit. Yeah, maybe lack of physical delivery, but vocal delivery, y'all are doing really well. What are my other fellow judges in training thinking of with our story we saw today?
Yeah, Megan, I agree with a lot of what you said. And I know you had introduced the category as being about both physical and vocal storytelling. And so I think over Zoom, we just have to get used to acting in this little box that we have. And so I think going forward, and this is something I would tell my students too, is use your surroundings. If you're in this box, if you want to enter and exit, if you want to use the space differently than you would be able to on a stage in front of people face to face. We really have to work to use this to our advantage and not just look at it as a hindrance.
I agree. And I should not put my ring light and my other light on either side of me. I feel like I'm in a light capsule and there's nowhere I can go. So I've got this. Oh, there's physicality.
Like grab my background and like be like, oh no, I'm a naked peach crayon.
That's an excellent note. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah.
I would say my biggest thing was I would have liked to see some characterization when you weren't speaking. You know, I felt like there was just like lulls. Got a little boring. I was like, oh, what's happening? So that would be one thing I would improve on, work on next time. But I agree, like the vocal variety was highly entertaining. I could think of nothing more to like want from that. That was impeccable.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Kaitlyn, I'm so proud of you right now. You said something like very constructive and sort of critical. I love it.
Out the gate.
Fabulous.
Like, yeah. All that nonsense. P.S. Pick it up. Boring when you're not talking. Dead-faced. What are you, reading ahead, trying to figure out what the hell you're going to do with the next crayon? Yeah, that was what I was doing.
Okay, so now we're going to put you all on the spot and make you choose a winner. So you have to determine who won this cold cut. Was it Jeff or was it Amy? And all I will say before that is remember that I was your teacher and that no, I'm kidding. I'm so kidding.
Remember that
you have no extra credit over me, Amy. I am student teaching. I'm not even there.
You're done already. Darn it.
None of them are beholden to you, and I have a fragile ego, so keep that in mind.
So Molly, we'll start with you. Who's your winner?
Oh, gosh, okay. I'm gonna have to go with Amy because I thought you brought a lot of variety to the characters and I enjoyed the level of play.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Megan, how about you?
It's not just because I'm biased, but I'm also going to go with Amy because I also appreciate the vocal variety. Jeff, you brought a lot of vocal variety with it. Amy's kind of went I say this kindly, but all over the place. Mm-hmm. So, which we like to see with different crayons. One of the things on the ballot says spontaneity, and I definitely think Amy was definitely being spontaneous during the entire cold cut here.
Awesome. Agreed. Well, Kaitlyn, we'll let you weigh in, even though I have already won.
Go ahead, break this tie, Kaitlyn.
I'm going to say, I'm so sorry, Jeff. Let me froze it again.
You're okay.
I have such bad internet. I'm so sorry.
I think I heard you say Jeff. Okay, thank you, Kaitlyn.
No, I think she said, I'm so sorry, Jeff.
I'm so sorry. But I have to pick Amy because she had more physicality.
Oh, did she? Well, that's where I'm gonna head out. Boop. Get out of the frame, damn it. I guess
I
I'm gonna
think
walk
it's
down
only
these
fair,
stairs.
Jeff. You have me 2-1 right now.
That's
So,
true.
yeah.
All right. Well, a victory goes to Amy. Not bitter
Yeah.
about it at all. I think
I
that was a fair choice.
So do I. Well, and I just want to say to the three of you, thank you so much for being here. This has been so much fun to talk to you. I have so much faith in you all to make our world a better place. Jeff and I and our compatriots may have failed so far, but you're going to be the generation that saves the world. And the three of you just make me feel so good about that. So,
well, you three are the reason why we do this show, because we feel that speech and those that are connected to this world are such incredible people that bring so much value to people's lives. So thank you, all three of you, for what you're doing and what you're going to do. And please come back and do it again with us, because you were a delight to have, all three of you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. So I am Dr. Amy Osetinsky.
And I'm not a doctor, Jeff McKinnon.
And this is
Speech Kids!
Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids! Speech Kids!